What's up, guys? LQ here with the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me here at my YouTube channel. Right now, I want to give you guys my thoughts on Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I finally got around to watching it. I know it's been around for a few weeks, but it's a long movie, and I had to find the time in my day to sit down and watch it. So I've watched it. What did I think of it? Well, first of all, let me say, Frankenstein's never really been a favorite character of mine. Not Frankenstein, not Victor Frankenstein, not Frankenstein's monster. Neither one have been a favorite character of mine. A couple years ago, I did a rewatch of the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein. You know, I did a rewatch of some of them, and I definitely respected the history behind them and what they meant for the future of movies, the future of horror movies. You know, how the steps that those movies took to get us to where we are today. I definitely have a lot of respect for it. And then the Frankenstein movie that came out in the 90s, I remember watching it once or twice and liking it enough, but it's not something that just, for whatever reason, the Frankenstein's monster and even the story of Victor Frankenstein, neither one have ever really spoken to me and really fascinated me in a way that I've had to revisit the character and revisit the story a whole lot. So with all that being said, I didn't have high expectations that this was a movie that I would love. And before I get into it, I'll just say this. The rewatchability on this movie is going to be low for me. Because, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the story in general. And, excuse me, and the movie's very long. I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. I don't watch it a lot because it's such a time commitment. And this movie's a time commitment. So rewatchability on this movie is going to be low. This isn't a movie I'm going to watch a lot. But I really liked it. I really liked it. Oscar Isaacs did a great job portraying Victor Frankenstein, and what I really liked about this character, which, yes, I've seen this part of this character in other portrayals before. I knew that this is who this character is, but for whatever reason, Oscar Isaac did such a good job of showing Victor Frankenstein is not a good person. He's not a moral person. He is a person who his only moral compass is scientific discovery. And that could mean walking unethical paths to accomplish that scientific discovery. So again, this is not a good person that we're dealing with. It's not a moral person. It's not somebody that you can root for. And this movie did a really good job of bringing that to light. Like I said, even though that's always been a part of the character, and it's never been lost on me in other versions of this film and other tellings of this story that Victor Frankenstein wasn't a good person, this does a really good job of just telling that side of the story. Then you have the Frankenstein's monster. First of all, before I talk about Frankenstein's monster, Christoph Waltz had a very, very good supporting role in this. Very much enjoyed his take on forget the guy's name, but he was helping Victor when Victor was making the monster. He wasn't on screen a lot, but definitely enjoyed Christoph Waltz when he was on screen. But anyways, let's get back to the monster. The monster was a different kind of take for the Frankenstein's monster. It's not one that we haven't seen before. You know, they definitely went a route where they made the monster not appear as monstrous as other versions of this story have done. You know, I seem to remember the book. Man, it's been a long time since I've read it. Probably since high school. But I seem to remember the book, Victor Frankenstein, trying to pick out the best parts of the corpses that he took from, and the most beautiful parts. So I guess that it would make sense that Frankenstein's monster would be a person that would have attractive features to them, because it's someone who was literally, the parts were handpicked for being attractive. All that being said, it's not you know, it's still a monster, and it still looks like a corpse that was stitched together and brought to life. But it went for a softer look, and the features, like I said, were more human, and I don't know if attractive is the right word, but just more personable, more presentable. And Frankenstein's monster goes through a lot of those beats that we've seen the character go through in other versions of this story. Learning about love, learning about mortality, and ultimately facing his creator. And that's where I really enjoyed this story, and that's where I think it all came together for me, was the monster finally facing its creator. The end of this movie has a meeting between Victor and his monster, and they spend some time where they just are talking to each other, and the whole thing is dialogue driven, where they are having a discussion. And I was captivated. I mean, I don't know if it was 5, 6, 7 minutes. It felt like a while where they were talking, but I was captivated the entire time. And for me, the entire story was brought together in this last meeting between Victor Frankenstein and his monster, where they're just talking to each other and they're coming to an understanding, and they're learning to forgive, and they're learning to accept, and they're learning to move on. And it was just a really well done sequence. And it's one of those sequences that, you know, Tarantino knows this, you know, any Tarantino fan knows this, but just a scene with dialogue that just has dialogue can be as captivating, as entertaining as any action sequence or any special effects sequence. And that was the case with this. For me, the ending, this meeting between the two of them, it really just tied the movie in a nice bow. Yes, the movie looked great. It's a Del Toro movie. It's gonna look great. Production design, you know, all that stuff looked great. I don't know how much of the design was practical, how much was CGI, but that's a compliment in the sense that you couldn't always tell what was CGI and what was practical. But it looked great. It had a very gothic-y feel to it that Del Toro likes playing in that playground. Del Toro has done a lot of romance movies that have protagonists in them that aren't necessarily romantic figures. And this definitely is something that, again, really kind of played in his wheelhouse. It played in his strengths. So Del Toro does a great job directing this. The set design is great. The music is good. There's not a lot I can really say bad about this movie other than the fact that it is really long, and it does have a few instances in the film where it does kind of drag a little bit. The pacing is off a couple times in this movie where it kind of started losing me a little bit. But the nice thing about it was being directed by a master like Del Toro, and even when it started to lose me a little bit, it was able to bring me right back in. This was a good movie. My only regret is that it was not playing in the theater near me, so I didn't get to see it in theaters, which means that I had to watch it here at home on a 55-inch TV rather than a big movie screen. So this is a movie that should be seen on theaters, on a theater screen. So I liked it. I would probably give it 8 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10, somewhere around there if I had to give it a score. But it was a good movie. Definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, it's not one I'm going to rewatch a lot, but it probably will end up being in my top 10 movies of the year, just because it was so well made and did such a good job of telling a familiar story in a new way. So that's my take on Del Toro's Frankenstein. What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments down below. While you're down there commenting, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, and until next time, we'll see you guys later.